a lot of these different thoughts and philosophies really came to me a lot later in life than in my younger days. So I think in my younger days, it's really about taking care of myself and finding a job, getting the job done, making clients happy. And then eventually that type of life, after you do it for a period of time, you will need to change the purpose or find a different meaning in what you do. So that's where I started to volunteer and work with different charities to see the deeper meaning and the bigger picture. Holding on to things that should have been let go a long time ago is something a lot of people do. In releasing and letting go as well, there comes a certain peace and clarity, and also a new aligned focus on what needs to be done, and that this life stage or this life phase has just changed.
What happens when you take a branding expert and turn them into a mental health warrior? You get Amanda Chen. She is the force behind Art for Good SG, a social enterprise that is absolutely disrupting how we think about therapy and community impact. From painting benches with 150 volunteers to fostering kittens, she is redefining what it means to lead with empathy. Get your notebooks out. This is how you design a life that matters. Let's dive in. Amanda, so you spent over a decade in branding and design and all of that. What did success look like for you back then when you were doing all those?
Having a successful project, completing it from start to finish and having a happy client and getting paid for what you do would be a success. And overall success would be having multiple clients that are happy with your work and keep coming back to you for the more work to be done.
Was that fulfilling for you back then?
For a start, yes, especially being very young and very new into the whole work and job industry. Having people like your work and appreciate your work, I think that was something that was really motivating to keep doing over a period of time.
Over a period of time. Eventually, it loses its charm.
I believe everyone has different life stages and transitions. So perhaps for this stage, it could work. And then the next life stage, you might want something more from it. The older we get, the more we want from life.
Any particular project that you did during that time that left a mark on you as a person?
In terms of the marketing and branding advertising period,
Doing that, something that was like so fulfilling for you that you're still proud of today.
during that time, so there were two projects that were really interesting by these two Frenchmen. The first one was to create the branding and design for a perfume line where the perfume was a roll-on perfume with Singapore essence. So I thought that was really interesting. They incorporated scent of the orchid into their perfume. And to kind of put that Singapore touch to it, they were actually looking for a Singapore designer. So that's where I came in to kind of help them create that brand and the design. So that was a job that I really enjoyed. The packaging, the designing, and then because they would also buy different advertising panels, I would design like a small animated video for that perfume. So it was a very interesting and fun job. Yeah. Lifestyle brands are always fun to do. And then he liked my work quite a bit that he referred me to his friend. So another Frenchman. And he was also a very interesting guy. He was actually working as an engineer in safety. So you're going to go, what can he sell? What can he do, right? So of course, he was actually selling his services to consult for safety. So that was also quite interesting. And then he wanted to be creative. Okay. So he came up with this card game for children. So it's a safety card game. So then I designed all the monsters and all the different, he came up with all the text of what the different safety areas are, what the kind of safety things you need to do. And then I did the illustration. So it was a really fun job. And then when he left, he actually produced, I think, a few thousand cards. And he didn't want to bring it with him back to France. So he left me a few boxes of these. And then he found out what I wanted to do at Art for Good, because it was also a transitional period for me at that point of time when I had the the advertising company as well as Art for Good. So he says, why don't, you use this for Art for Good, and, we can donate some to the children from low-income families, the children in need, and the rest of it can be on your shop as part of that awareness project.
You mentioned that you were still doing your, full-time job in the agency, and then you started Art for Good. Or how was like juggling between those two during those times?
I also owned the branding and advertising agency as well. So it had to be...
Both of your babies.
Yes, and I guess that was the first baby. And then I actually held on to that baby while I was studying for my master's in art therapy. And I was still doing a little bit of projects here and there, but kind of slowing things down. And then there was also that just playing around with different ideas based on the different things that I had in terms of the advertising, branding company, and Art for Good. And what made sense, what didn't make sense, to kind of move forward or to step away from. I did have some intention to also change that advertising company to being a social enterprise as well, where was it possible to train those with disabilities to also take on some of this back-end work and then provide jobs for others. And then thinking about it is like, why can't we also put this same capacity under Art for Good instead of managing two different things?
Right.
So even if I wanted to kind of explore that idea, there's no point running two different things when the efforts to put in for the marketing, the advertising, the upkeep for two companies.
It's not easy.
Yeah, will be a little bit more challenging. I mean, I know some people, multi-entrepreneurs, where they have multiple companies, but also realistically speaking, it'll be how much time and efforts being placed into each company. And sometimes having that focus to just focus on just one thing and just do that one thing well. That was my final conclusion to that journey, that I had to close one and just really focus on the other. I couldn't wear that many hats. And if I were to wear many hats, I needed to be a little bit more selective with the type of hats that I wanted to wear. And then looking at the two different companies as well, which brand would actually survive a lot better. So I decided Art for Good brand, and what it kind of set out to do would probably last a lot longer and a lot better than a boutique marketing company where there's so many out there. The commercial scene, everybody can easily start a company and sell their services. But what is more difficult to do is to build a different brand that can create social impact. And also something that that is beyond just something that's commercial or earning money, but something with a higher purpose or deeper meaning, and being able to connect people on a different level. I think that was more important than just having a company to offer a service.
So you did mention that, like, that there was a resonance that pulled you toward therapy. Like, can you sort of like tell us the first time when you realized, like, this thing, the art therapy could be medicine and not just, marketing type of a jargon?
I think for therapy work, it takes a certain type of personality to be able to become a therapist or to become a counselor. So so one of the things that I realized from early on is that people will come to me with their problems and ask me to help them solve their problems.
As in like friends or
Friends, family, and then it's really about, are you able to provide that solution? How are you able to dispense that solution? And then, of course, learning about psychotherapy and counseling help to refine some of the answers. So a lot of times, some of the answers of the problems people are facing. Yeah. And sometimes it's also introspective that because you are the one having the problem, it's harder for you to see the problem. But it's easier to see the problem with the lens of an outsider, to see what that problem is and then solve that problem.
So you were doing these for like for friends and like
family, and just really sitting down and speaking with them and connecting with them and seeing whether you could truly help them through the issues that they're having.
so that sort of like made you realize that you could actually do this for on a larger scale, or was it more like you personally had an instance where you felt art helped you overcome something that you were going through?
I think it's a little bit different. I think realizing that I had some of the natural abilities of becoming a counselor or therapist was a bonus, but I kind of discovered that a lot more when I was doing the course. I think what motivated me to wanting to help others on a personal level was because I had some counselor friends. And when I was working in a charity on a part-time basis, I was doing a lot of the commercial stuff, in running the events, doing the graphic design, helping the charity with the branding, but also working together with the charities team. That means we all sat together, we were all friends, and they would actually talk about some of the difficulties and the cases that they had. Well, I had the fun job though. Um, I would actually, one of the jobs that I had was to grant wishes. So that was really cool. I'll actually go talk to the children, the families, and collect wishes.
Make a Wish Foundation type of a thing.
Very similar to Make-A-Wish Foundation, and then grant these wishes to the children from low-income families or children in need. And of course, most of these children were also clients of those counselor friends. But of course, I was a little bit more art-based. So it was a fun job to kind of grant wishes, but there was also that desire to wanting to help them more. And that the interest in psychology as well. And also gravitating to what if I were to become a counselor like my colleagues as well. And that's actually where they suggested, since you're good at art, why don't you explore art therapy? There's a combination of art, psychology, counseling, and you can also help people that way.
Were you aware of like such a thing as art therapy before that, or?
Not at all. So I was very kind of into that commercial branding world more than the charity area. So I did start volunteering a lot, working for different charities as well, for quite a few years before I actually discovered art therapy. I had that introduced to me and then started to kind of explore that area.
Right. So, did you have any like particular specific stories while you were volunteering that made you feel either, you know, it broke your heart, or it was so made you feel so fulfilled that you decided to pursue like this, like art therapy and all of that?
During the volunteering and work with the charity, one of the interesting things I found was that there were certain families who requested for medical supplies instead of something fun or something the child might want. When I had deeper conversations with the families, because it is a very unusual thing to, have for a party. So then after that, I realized that there was a few different groups of people who were not getting support that they needed.
Look.
So those were the people who fall between the gaps. So you have, for example, if you have a kidney problem, you can go to National Kidney Foundation. And then you can get subsidies, support, advice, financial advice, medical advice. But what happens if you have a rare disorder? Then you're the only one in Singapore, the only one in Asia. What are you going to do, right? So then you realize that there are a lot of people who suffer from rare disorders that they don't have anywhere to go to. During that time, I actually befriended the parents, where the child had Pompei's disease, and they actually started a society for the parents, so that they could have a voice. And through that voice, they can get subsidies, they can get help, they can let the government know that, there's a group of people with rare disorders who, have needs that are unheard of or unmet, and they need that support. So they started off as a society, and then I think they only had like 20 families, and then they registered as a charity. And then now they have 200 over families that they serve. So there are a lot of such people in need, but you need the right person to stand up first and start that movement. So that's where the power of community comes in. That if you have a community, you have a bigger voice. You can advocate, can create awareness. You can have a group that has needs that you can fight for that now can be fulfilled. So now they have, a medical fund that they can tap on. They even have a art therapy program for those with rare disorders and special needs that we started for the family.
So you mentioned that it was like, similar to Make-A-Wish Foundation type of a thing. So I'm sure you ran into situations where it's the outlook is not good for the kid who's having this disease or something like that.
Yeah.
How did you manage to get through there with like, still fulfilling the wish, but also I'm sure it's like it weighs on you, the burden, the kind of like it gets heavy on you?
Well, for the wish that they requested for, I mean, most of the time the parents will allow the child to make the wish. Yeah. Sometimes the family will discuss with the child what the wish is going to be. So then, whatever they decide, we will just fulfill. Yeah. So I think ultimately, even if it's some medical equipment, it's something that helps the child. So it's just that it's the family's decision that this is the need that is most important now that needs to be fulfilled.
Do you keep in contact with the families or like you check in on the kids afterwards?
For the Wish and Well, not really. Um, Sometimes yes, because there's so many children and families that we do the outreach to. Some of them actually still keep in touch, and some of them after they've received that wish, um, we go our separate ways. Yeah. So the parents of the Rare Disorder Society of Singapore, we kept in touch all these years. So when they actually became a charity, they were looking for board of directors. So then that's where they asked, can you be part of the board?
So you're part of the board of directors now. Okay.
And they said, they said, whatever you need, however I can help, I'll help. But even before going on to the board, it was the same offer as well. Whatever you need, if I can help, I'll help. So like the logo, the website, all these different needs that they had.
For the wishing well thing that you did, it's more of medical conditions that the kids are going through for low income families. It's like
So it's a range of children and clients that also go beyond the regular clients at the Wishing Well. So they do serve children from low income families that receive counseling. Some of them work closely with schools to give them that support. And so some of the counselors are assigned to specific schools. So the program of the Wishing Well was extended to serve children beyond those that the charity directly serves.
right.
So other families who had this need could also apply.
And just to clarify, these are children. Are they going through more of a physical, that type of a medical like issues, or are they more of a behavioral, or you're talking more like they need therapy type of a situation?
So most of them are going to have learning difficulties like dyslexia, ADHD, and these are usually mainstream children. Some of them are actually from low-income families, or most of them are from low-income families, which means that they will not be able to pay for this type of support. So that's where the charity and the schools, they come in to see whether this is something that could be arranged to help these children. So this was actually quite a long time ago, right? So this was about maybe a 14, 15 years ago kind of situation, of which a lot of things have evolved and changed, where nowadays you have in-house school counselors, you have a lot more support. You actually have a counseling team in most MOE schools where I've seen them actually invite art therapists to do workshops or to work with some of their children also directly in schools because art therapy is less invasive than talk therapy.
Which is an interesting thing because, for us, let's say like millennials and like late Gen Xers, we grew up with no idea about, especially for therapy. It's especially for Asian, type of families in our communities here. Therapy is like a foreign word growing up. How did you find that, like, for you yourself growing up without that type of, uh, perception here in the communities? And where did you start seeing the change happen? Like around which year, and how did that come about?
I think in understanding therapy, it answers a lot of questions to needless suffering that I personally had or others might have had if, let's say, there were therapeutic interventions provided at that point of time. That certain things were completely okay or normal to feel, and just having that safe space to talk about it and work through some of these issues instead of suffering in silence. So a lot of times we just push things that are uncomfortable or difficult to talk about away and kind of just keep quiet about it or swallow it. And sometimes it can have an adverse effect in terms of not processing all these difficult things, but eventually dealing with it later. But that also leads to unnecessary suffering. That means if you could have dealt with it earlier and better, all this, silence and suffering was actually could have been avoided.
Did you go through that personally at a point where for you to realize all this?
I think a lot of times, not just me, is that when something bad happens, we suppress it and then we just kind of deal with it. But it might not necessarily be the best or the healthiest way of dealing with it, but we deal with it. But it's really about learning more about yourself, learning more about different ways or techniques that could make life easier or better, that you could actually implement or help others, that can make life so much easier.
All right. So what I was asking is more of before you started doing art therapy itself. Like personally, when did you start realizing? Because like I mentioned, we grew up in a time where mental health was. We grew up in a time when mental health was not exactly, realized as the perception is different, especially in the Asian cultures. Did you have a moment when you were younger where you realized that this is something that is worth focusing on, and it means that it matters a lot?
Well, I wasn't introduced to therapy in my younger days. I only discovered that much later. More when I was working with different charities, realizing that counseling was available to children and how that actually helped them. Um, Looking at their changes, especially some of them will actually come into the drop-in center at the charity, and before they received counseling and after they received counseling, there was a difference in terms of their demeanor and their behavior, and the way they interacted, and the possibility of being able to instill change, especially in children. Um, a lot of these different thoughts and philosophies really came to me a lot later in life than in my younger days. So I think in my younger days, it's really about taking care of myself, taking care of, finding a job, getting the job done, making clients happy. And then eventually that type of life, after you do it for a period of time, um, you will need to change the purpose or find a different meaning in what you do. So that's where I started to volunteer and work with different charities to see the deeper meaning and the bigger picture.
Right.
Yeah. So I did feel myself gravitating away from that very commercial feel of life. And also because of that realization, it was a very clear answer that I should have closed down that advertising company a longer time ago. But also uh, holding on to things that should have been let go a long time ago is something a lot of people do. Yeah. So in releasing and letting go as well, there comes a certain peace and clarity, and also a new aligned focus on what needs to be done, and that this life stage or this life phase has just changed.
So you doing if you starting to do the community services and all of that, that's where you felt that that's your new purpose, and the kids and working with the kids, and that's how you got into the whole thing. Working with these kids, were there any like instances where you have to, because you were still juggling like between your, the design and the agency stuff and the kids, and also you have your family stuff. Have you had any type of like, incidents where you had to drop other stuff like work, or you'd be like a family dinner to go help out a child, or were you not involved in that type of level back then?
I think that for every type of job or work that you do, there has to be a certain level of boundary. Even if you would like to have what you call work-life balance, there has to be a certain boundary that you put in place that, okay, I'm not going to work 24/7. I'm going to work from this time to this time. I'm not going to work weekends, right? So there's a certain set of boundaries that have to be in place even when you're doing social work or you're doing outreach work. Yeah. Unless you are on suicide watch, then maybe that's a little bit of a 24/7 type of advocacy or work, right? But other than that, my boundary when I was actually working with the children was the time that they're given. Certain art therapy workshops or art workshops or certain art therapy sessions. That means if this is your art therapy session, this is your 1 hour a week. The therapist cannot be on a 24/7 call for you. The therapist also has different clients that they need to see. Those boundaries need to be put in place. That there's, if you want to message the therapist, you can really just to schedule. But if you are talking about problems, the therapist might not have that time to talk to you about problems outside of your therapy time because they're also serving other clients.
What's the main difference between like, being an art therapist and, a counselor that deals with like all the other aspects of like, the patients?
Both are very similar in terms of the work. The priority is still going to be the client's mental health and well-being. Art is an additional medium, a tool, especially when words are difficult or when the client is nonverbal or has low self-confidence. It's really a visual communication tool to help them out in that space. So the therapy space, the counseling space, these are similar spaces. In some cases, some counselors also introduce art into the process as well, because art has been proven to be very helpful in this area. It's just that their specialty is not going to be in art therapy. Yeah. So for art therapists, we do specialize a lot with art, where we work with different types of engagements, different interventions to produce different results and different types of healing. Yeah. So the counselor, even if you are going to say life coach as well, have the same goals of improving the client's life. So ultimately, it doesn't matter how you get there, it matters that you've improved the life. Yeah. So all these are what we call respectable jobs or careers that you're helping somebody else in need. And there's a lot of need in this world. So there's going to be a lot of different jobs that will be available for everyone because mental health is so important.
You mentioned about the boundaries between like work and even caring about the your clients as well. Were there any incidents where you those boundaries been crossed?
I think it's very important to maintain those boundaries and to also see what you are comfortable with. Okay. So I'll give you an example that, okay, uh, some children, they like to draw or paint on you, right? On another human being, or another adult. Yeah. It's your own personal boundary as the art therapist that do you allow the child to draw on you or do you not allow the child to draw on you? Okay. So for those who are okay, then by all means the child will like draw on the hands, stuff like that. Right? And for some people who are not comfortable, it is okay to say no. So then that's where those boundaries are set to say that, you have the paper, why don't you draw on the paper? If you want to draw on a hand, why don't you draw on your own hand?
Right.
Right? You say you don't have to draw on my hand. Yeah. So then that's a boundary that's set, right? But if this is not a boundary that you want to set, then by all means, if they want to paint your arms, your legs, your face, you can allow your body to become a canvas for them to paint, right? There's some people who are completely okay with it, but if you ask me my personal preference, I prefer not to be drawn on. Yeah, especially with a permanent marker.
Oh, goodness, damn now. Why did you pick art therapy instead of like other? Because we understand that you want to help the kids, and like after experiencing that through the community outreach and all of that, why did you pick art therapy itself specifically?
Okay, so I did some research before I actually decided on art therapy. So I did, look at counseling in practice, psychotherapy, different courses, right? And then I realized art therapy was the most appealing because it sounded more fun. Yeah, you have the element of art in place. And art is always
Round as well.
interesting. Yeah, so that kind of made sense to me and into putting things full circle. Yeah. I mean, there's also different modalities like play therapy. Yeah, which sometimes these therapies overlap on each other. And you can see some of these things surface. So even in play therapy, they introduce art materials to play with. And in art therapy, sometimes play mediums also come out as well. The engagement of play, um, being narrative and telling, storytelling as well. Some of these therapies, they do overlap. Um, there are also other creative therapies like music therapy, movement therapy, dance therapy. It's just a matter of picking the one that connects with you the most. And I think for me, art made the most sense.
So, have you ever dabbled in art therapy prior to this? Like, even without you, albeit like without you knowing that you were doing art therapy, but back then, especially agency, I'm sure there was like a lot of stressful moments and like, situations, the months where it's like deadlines. Have you ever dabbled in art therapy yourself?
So art therapy is actually quite new, especially in Singapore. So when I first joined the art therapy, I think they only had two or three cohorts before me. So it was actually quite a new thing. Yeah.
So, this is studying, right?
Yeah.
Studying.
Yeah. So if the studies were introduced at a later stage, it also meant that the availability of art therapy prior to that was also going to be lower.
Have you done anything that's art related back then when you were stressed, basically? Like in layman's term, is like just to make you feel better. Because I personally also do. Sometimes I'm stressed with work. Either I will, write or take pictures and all of that. So have you done something like that?
So for me, I think what I did to de-stress was I actually did underwater photography. So I did a lot of scuba diving, and I also dabbled with taking photos and videos underwater. I think that also created quite a lot of interest and joy, especially when you're able to capture a certain marine creature that's really, really elusive on photograph or film. Yeah, so I think that was one of the things I used to de-stress. And of course, going away for these overseas trips in order to go diving was also a natural de-stressor. Yeah, being in nature, being underwater, doing a bit of photography. Yeah.
I think when people talk about art, it's more of like in the act of creating, right? So especially with the underwater photography stuff, it's not an easy type of photography to get into, though. How deep did you get into that?
I think very surface level. I didn't go very much into the lighting in the
What camera were you using? Like the whole the set, the build, and all,
I know I use a Canon.
and then you have to build a rig, right, for the underwater.
It came with the underwater housing, right? So it's just really snap and go, but it's really about keeping balance, focus and getting everything in the screen and shooting. Just a different environment from when you take photos on land versus underwater. Yeah, there are a lot of people who have those mega equipments and stuff like that. Wasn't that much into it. It's more of being in nature, enjoying that journey, and taking a few as I went along, right? More of that. And if the photograph didn't turn out well, that was still okay, right? I didn't like. I wasn't the kind that
Process.
yeah. I wasn't the kind that would stress over a horrible photo. It's just if you were there at the right time, the right moment, and the right instance for you to take that shot, then that would have been the moment.
So that's what you used to do. And nowadays, do you have any art related stuff that you do to de stress?
Just doing nothing these days. is the best way to de-stress.
I guess I can relate to that. Yeah, just to chill, nothing to do.
Kind of like chill, read, and do something else that's completely unrelated to my work. Yeah. Sometimes, yes, to create a bit of art here and there, but sometimes it's just good to, as I said, really just do nothing.
In your art therapy like classes and all the sessions, when you say art is quite a broad subject as well. What do you guys usually do? Is it more painting, drawing, or what's the process there?
Well, it's going to be client centered. That means it really depends what the client's needs are, and then we will design or we will propose different art materials or different art intervention that best suit that group, the group or the individual. So, for example, if let's say we're working with patient with dementia, for example, then you might want to find an art activity that maybe is easy for them to hold. That means, let's say they have dexterity issues in their hands because they are much more senior patient. Also, if you want to work with their cognitive reserves, then you might want to introduce an art material that supports that. So collages are usually quite helpful that, okay, they don't need to draw, they don't need to paint, they don't need, and if they want to write, it's really optional for them to write. And then putting together a collage, picking the images that they like. If you put in old Singapore as well, they can connect with that and tell you stories. So we call this reminiscence therapy. So they remember
Right.
past, they talk about those past, and it lights up a different part of their brain, which improves cognitive functioning. So you're really looking at this activity as an intervention to help the individual rather than just an activity for them to do.
Just to spend time, like, okay.
The first level would always be engagement. If you don't engage them, then of course you can't incorporate the intervention that's needed. So once they're engaged, you can say, okay, they're interested in this. What more can I do to kind of, help them?
Way it's sort of like bespoke depending on the client's needs. For example, like some clients are like, I don't know how to draw at all. Like, can I still do art therapy? Like,
Definitely you can. So we want to introduce it at different levels, also mostly easy or entry level so that everyone can participate. There are different ones where there are people who are really good at art, who want to be in art therapy and also showcase their talent, of which we also welcome that. But of course, they might belong to a different group. So they won't be in a group of patients with dementia. They will be in a different type of group that's seeking a different type of support.
to most of your clients and all, what's the age range like? Because you mentioned about dementia and then you have kids as well. What's the majority of your clients?
So my client age range would be from maybe 5, 6 years old to 99.
What's the majority of like the
So I think that, okay, this is my personal philosophy in life that I will be called where I'm needed. I have worked with different groups of clients as well as different individuals. And usually when they ask me if I have the capacity to help, I will say yes. If the hospital says, can you do this group of patients with dementia? Then my answer will be yes, especially if I'm able to support that. If somebody does a cold call and say that, I have this issue, can you see me for art therapy? My answer would still be yes. So this could be a young adult, this could be a special needs child, this could be a senior with dementia. Anybody that needs help, if I am available to help, I would like to extend that. And that's just a personal philosophy. So I wouldn't say that I am fixed to any specific genre. But if you were to say, what is the mission of art for good, right? I would say that it started off with supporting persons from low-income families, of which I still hoped to do that. And it extended to those with special needs and disabilities, of which I still hope to serve that beneficiary group. And if anyone else who needs a community and fall between the gaps and needs some help, this is where hopefully Art for Good can also come in to provide that support and that type of space for them to find some solace, some healing using art.
how does this whole system work? Because, being blunt, therapy nowadays, like I mentioned earlier, mental health is focused on and it's supported and people are getting the help they need. But sometimes, most of the time as well, therapy is not cheap. How what are the the funding and the kind of support that we have in the communities where people is like, yeah, I think I need to see a therapist, but I can't afford it. How does it work, and how are we helping here?
So that's also an area that I'm also trying to navigate. How can we make therapy more affordable? So, as a social enterprise, we do have a mission to give up to 20%. So, that will be the 20% discount that we actually give to different beneficiary groups and charities that do approach us and who are in need of a discount. Ideally, if we have different sponsors or partners to help subsidize or defray the cost, that would be most ideal. We have worked with different charity partners, of which they do help to defray the cost. But of course, we're always in search of a kind sponsor or corporate who want to kind of push this field of mental health forward so we are able to support more people to provide therapy at a subsidized cost without always implicating the therapist or the counselor involved. I know there are some people who do it pro bono, but that's not something that the organization can survive on long term, right? We're also looking for sustainable programs or models that we can use to keep the program going. So it can't be 100% subsidized cost. And also, one of the things that I've learned over this journey of working with a lot of different charities and those with low income is that therapy work has to be a joint investment, which means that if it's provided for free, sometimes they don't invest in their own growth or the therapy sessions, they can just cancel or they can miss sessions, which we encourage that joint responsibility or ownership. So even if the charity pays for most of the therapy, the beneficiary needs to come out of pocket to also contribute to that journey. That means even if it's $5 or $10, they are coming out of pocket as well and investing in themselves to have this mental health journey. Yeah.
Going back to the difference between counseling and art therapists, right? Like being a counselor and an art therapist, does does your clients come in with like heavier type of like subject matters that you need to tackle, or is it more of like just to ease them and you don't have to really delve into the heavier parts of them?
We support them however they need. So if they do come in with heavy emotional materials, we are equipped to be able to support them. So I've actually had clients who come in who just talk to me all the way without making any art. And that's also okay because we are supporting them in their mental health, right? So it doesn't matter whether they make art or not, it matters that they are supported.
Do you have like severe cases that you've experienced?
It depends how you term severe. Yeah, I think everybody has their own set of mental health difficulties and struggles. It's just how we manage them. Yeah. A lot of times it's also helplessness and frustration about a situation they cannot change. And I think we've all been through such situations as well. But of course, for change to occur, it also depends on how old they are, what kind of conditions they're exposed to, and when this change can actually happen. So if they're a child, they probably have to wait until they're older to be able to activate some of these different changes. Otherwise, they're just learning how to deal with it or
Process.
deal with these challenges because we all have challenges, right? So some might be more, some might be less, but it's a matter of learning how to regulate and sometimes patience to wait for the right moment at the right time before the next life phase or evolution to take place. Yeah.
So for you, bringing work home would be like a whole different ball game. How do you deal with it? Because I understand that you meet different patients with different like, situations. I'm sure it weighs on your soul a little bit. How do you make sure that you don't bring home like that and affect you personally as well?
So the funny thing is, might not be the best way, but it's to keep yourself really busy. So it's not that I keep myself really busy, it's that I am naturally very busy. So I always have a lot of things that needs doing. that needs to be done. So like checking the financial statements, writing
So you're
reports,
occupied.
scheduling. Yeah, so it's like being too busy to kind of dwell with the negativity. That means, yes, I will address this issue, but I kind of leave it in that therapy space um, and then move on to the next thing that needs me. So there's a lot of things that need me, especially becoming a new mother. I realize how much the child needs the mother. So there's a lot of people who do need me, and also to kind of balance that out. Um, yeah, so I think I also do have the philosophy of I will do what I can when I can. So if that is the time for me to do what I can when I can, then I'll do what I can then. And it all rhymes, doesn't it?
You do need that mental and emotional resilience, sort of like a shield in a way. It's a self-protective, like, soft shield.
I do self care practices. It's not that I don't. I think one of the things I do is that I do journaling and reflection. So when something heavy or difficult does come up and that space is needed, I would actually sit down and uh, write out how I feel and process it as well. It's not that I leave it unprocessed. It's maybe also part of my personality not to dwell too long on things as well. And also to keep busy. I think an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And sometimes when you idle for too long and you've just got, too much idle time, you allow for a lot of these negative thoughts and feelings to come in and live inside your brain. Yeah. So that can be quite a scary thing. So if there's no space for them to live inside your brain, uh, that's also a good thing, isn't it?
Do you ever had like a patient, an experience with a patient or a client that sort of like hit you quite hard? Then you need to like take a little breath and then like move on from it.
It's a very human thing. You can't be friends with everybody. So sometimes as a therapist, you can't connect with every single client that you meet, right? So there are some cases that there is a client and therapist mismatch. I think that's what you're talking about, right? That you can't help the client. So in usual cases, what we do in such a case is that we stop. That means we don't keep pushing it because the therapy dollar is quite expensive. And we also know that we can't help this client or this patient. So we also take a step back. We talk to the family, we have a discussion, and we say, okay, this is not working out, maybe something else. Then we can also do different referrals if the family needs, or we also look at different pathways the client might take because there are different therapeutic modalities as well that one can always explore or try. They don't always have to stick with our therapy per se, right? So we go by a client focused approach. We see what's best for the client and then we pivot and we navigate around the client. Yeah. So yeah, I there are definitely cases that not suitable. But usually, we are able to do assessment over one or two sessions to see whether there's client therapist type of compatibility as well. By the first or second session, when there's no connection, you can already take a step back and say that I think your child or the client would be better suited with somebody else.
You don't push it.
Yeah, yeah. It's not hard sales kind of thing. I think once you go into therapy work, it's not about how many clients you can clinch. It's more about how many people you can truly help. So it's different, yeah. So also a very interesting fun fact is that sometimes when we do get sponsors for charities as well, is how many clients have you helped, and that's the KPI. And then that's very different when it comes to therapy work because some need more help. Therefore, the client count might be lower because the journey might be longer, and some people might be faster because the healing is faster, so the client count can be faster. So there's no very specific timeline to when or how much therapy one needs, or when the person can actually achieve healing. So a lot of the questions is, how many other therapy sessions will I need in order to feel better or to heal? Then I was like, as many as you need, right?
Let's talk a bit about Art for Good. So it's going to be a decade next year. You guys been around since 2017. For our listeners who are not familiar with you guys, could you just give us like a short little like summary of like what you guys are and what you do and what you've been doing these years?
Okay, so Art for Good is a social enterprise. So we do a lot of art therapy and community art projects to help different community groups. So one of our main groups that we do serve are children from low-income families, children with special needs and disabilities. We believe that children are the future, so we do have a focus on working with a lot of children. However, we work with different communities, and it's not limited to just children. We do work with different senior groups. We also work with adults. Whoever needs a community help and healing, where we have multi-level of art type of programs. Not everybody needs art therapy. Sometimes they just need a community. So that's where our focus can come in to provide that for people who are looking for different ways to use art for healing. Yeah. But primarily, it would be art therapy. A lot of different, the curriculums that we do offer have been tweaked to have some art therapy elements because there are benefits in art therapy that actually help and support others. So there are many different ways to help, and this is how we are helping and creating that social impact using art.
So prior to Art for Good being founded, were there any other organizations or like services that sort of like supply this type of like service? Or were you guys the first? Were you like the trailblazers, like first time, first one in Singapore type of a thing?
I think there are different people who offer different things based on the capacities that they have. So I do know that there are different organizations that do, for example, murals. This is something that we do offer as well. Um, this is what we call the mural adoption program. So we actually only adopt schools and charities, special needs schools especially, who need murals done in their schools. And then we'll do a matching where the corporates come in to fulfill that need and to also do a little bit of mural painting as team bonding activity. But the overall good is that the school has a mural that is meaningful in their space. So with that in mind, there are different mural companies as well. But for us, it's very specifically with a for good mission that we only serve charities and schools and special needs schools to fulfill this. So that need is a little bit different. Also, the way that we design is also a little bit different. We also look at the school, their needs, or the charity and the needs, and we design the murals according to their needs. So, for example, one of the charities that we helped, also children from low-income families, there's a specific wall that they used as a teaching aid. So that's when we painted a tree, which they can actually stick different things to teach the children to use the tree to kind of learn about different growths or different things. So it became an educational mural. And then different things within that space also is really, really uplifting and empowering the children. A scene that we painted where the children were reaching for the stars. Yeah. So it becomes a little bit more meaningful than just a decorative mural in that space. It really connects the people who are using the space to art that can be meaningful rather than just just a garden full stop, just a beautiful forest full stop, but with a meaning. So when we do the special needs schools, we did one which was really interesting where we had a fairy tale where the meaning behind it is that yes, you learn about stories, you learn to tell your own stories, and there is magic in each story. So then there's a unicorn, there's a dragon, and then it also lets them think about being creative and telling and narrating their own stories. Yeah.
You started this on your own, which is sort of like a first for you. I mean, first for the in the industry itself. How was the journey like? How difficult was it to switch from, the normal agency work to this, the charity-based, like art therapy-based, like company?
Well, I think the business aspect of things is just duplicate. That means how you run the agency would also be how you might run the business in for good. Yeah. So the accounts will be the same. The registering of the business is the same. Talking to people and getting clients will also be the same.
Fill a
It's-
business.
Yeah. So it's just a different nature of business where this one aims to create social good. Yeah. And also in working with people in therapy, it is how can we create good for that specific person? How be able to help? Yeah. If we're not able to help, then of course, how are they able to get the help that they need? So it's a different nature of business, but business is still business. So that really doesn't change too much. So a lot of these skills can actually be mirrored into what's needed for business. For example, if it's graphic design and branding, it's also about putting those same elements into for good or social enterprise. It really is another business. It's just a business that creates social impact and has a different way for sustainability.
Right.
Um,
Is it like more difficult to, because, getting sponsors and all that, or people to work with for this type of like industry, is it much more difficult? And how do you manage to get it? I mean, you guys are surviving for like 9 years now. How did you do that?
I think one of the blessings that we have is that there are people who approach us because they like what we do and the philosophy, and that is already kind of one foot into the door. That means they're already interested in wanting to do something together, and then we follow up and see whether collaboration can be done there. Then I think the next one is networking and meeting the right people. That you do have the referrals and recommendations because of what we do and because they know what we do and they like what we do, they can then refer or recommend to their friends or family. So also another foot in the door that, people like what we do, therefore the chances of them being clients or, being part of what we do is higher as well.
Word of mouth, like, referrals and all of that, and make it well done. You've been doing the agency work for over a decade before you switched, right? Did you miss anything from the agency life?
Well, I believe that if I wanted something from the agency life, it could also be replicated in what we do for Art for Good. Why not, right? So I think in the beginning, when I did the crossover, there was a few different projects that I kind of just parked at the Art for Good. There was one that we did one branding design website job that was quite big, and then we just parked it under Art for Good. It says this is the new company's name. This is and then I just did the job. So it's possible to take on those type of jobs, but it's really setting that personal boundary. We talked about boundaries, right? How much of this do I want to do? Because everything that we do takes up time. Then it's a matter of focus of what do we want to be doing, right? So it's like if I want to spend quality time with family, and then how do I balance that with everything else that I'm doing? There are certain things that I will have to set boundaries to. There are certain things that I'll have to say no to, like this interview. Yeah, just kidding. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you can't do everything. So everything does take time. So it's a matter of being very selective with what you do, what you say, who you meet. Yeah. As we grow older, that kind of catches up on you as well. That, yeah, you have a limited bandwidth of time and a limited number of things that you can or cannot do.
I mean, you did mention earlier that nowadays you just want to like not do anything as part of your therapy. Do you still do any type of art for yourself, your own?
So I have a new client. She's 2 years old. So she makes me do art on request. She goes, "Mommy, I want a star. Mommy, I want a moon. I want a cat." And then that's where instantly a small clay cat will emerge. A small magnet of a moon would emerge. So she's my new creative director in what she wants. So I kind of make whatever she wants. A lot of the things that I do now is made with clay. So the last time we did clay dough. But of course, she's not at the stage where she can actually make it. So she can say it. And then when she says it, then mommy will make it for her.
For this new client sounds like your new inspiration as well in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, there's a lot of personal art creative projects that I want to do. But also, it's a matter of time. It's also about mental space and mental energy. It's like, okay, this creative project can wait.
Can you share with us like one of those?
Well, I actually wanted to do children book illustrations. And then the goal was to create a book that my child could read. Yeah. And then after a while, I was like, they grew up too fast, right? She's already reading some of the things. And I'm like, okay, this will not be the first book she's going to read. So I was like, okay, this can wait. Maybe when she's older and she can read other things, then I can actually develop different things. But right now, I can do like easy pictures, easy clay stuff for this age, more sensory play kind of things. And then the book can wait. Yeah, the book is fun. It's a novel idea, but it's not a must have. It's not a I must be a children's book illustrator, publisher, published author and artist. Kind of past that stage. It's just a nice idea, a nice creative idea that I was toying with. That would be nice to have. But if we don't have it, it's okay.
It's
Life
okay.
goes on. Yeah, there's a lot more important work that needs to be done, and the children's book can wait.
Going back to this latest client of yours, after years of working with your other clients, did it help? Because I'm sure you need a lot of patience and mental maturity, emotional maturity as well. Did that help a lot now that you have this new client of your own personal client?
It does help quite a bit, especially in understanding, also meeting those emotional needs. So I think a lot of times in therapy, we talk about unmet needs. That means these are things that you need that you didn't get, and therefore there's an emotional deficiency, right? So that's also something that I was really mindful uh, in terms of bringing up a child to make sure those needs are met. And also, I think you're familiar with the 5 love languages. Yeah, it's also about figuring out what that need might be, that love language might be, to kind of make sure that her love tank is full and she grows up to just be a very happy child with all her needs met. Yeah, not just financially or physically, but also emotionally. I think that's something that um, is lacking in a lot of people, and it's something that I wanted to be mindful about in terms of being a parent.
What's your life philosophy like that you can part the knowledge to your kid?
It is what it is. It's really about acceptance, right? A lot of times we get into a lot of emotional anguish because we do not accept, or we have a certain expectation that of how certain things need to go. But sometimes it's just being content with what it is for what it is. So it is what it is.
I do have this question because you do art therapy, and this has been sort of like a topic for, especially here in Singapore as well, right? There's this quote that I love from Dead Poet Society with Robin Williams when he was talking about, we read and write poetry because we are members of the human race. And, the famous line, when medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life, but poetry, beauty, romance, love, basically he's talking about art, right? These are what we stay alive for. And then during COVID, being an artist was like the top, like least significant role in Singapore. Right, right below it was, I think it was like telemarketer. So that made a big hoo-ha in the news as well. Like, how do you feel about art in Singapore, and especially since you're working with art therapy?
I understand what you're saying and where you're coming from with that. I think that art in Singapore in general uh, is starting to grow. It's not as established as it is in different countries where the culture is a little bit different, where art plays a more important role. I think for us in Singapore, Singaporeans, we are at a learning stage. We are not at the stage that we fully understand what it is and what it can do for us. So I believe if we are open to learning and growing, which most Singaporeans are, I believe we will actually get to a stage that art can be really fully beneficial for us culturally, therapeutically, in those aspects. But I think if you ask, are we there yet? Definitely not. Yeah. But of course, not completely at zero either. I think that there's a lot of great initiatives that have been placed out there to provide those opportunities to learn and to grow. And there's a lot of work with the different communities that also involve art. So I wouldn't put us at a zero. I'll put us maybe halfway there, and um, not things that we have learned, things that we are going to learn. Yeah. And I think a lot of us are at 50% for a lot of things that we do anyway. There's always that area for growth, but there's also not that we come from nothing. There's some knowledge, but not full knowledge.
There's this other part about it's not just having a very lucrative type of an art industry here. It's more of what can we do as a society here to be more appreciative of art. The way to appreciate the local artists and the art here more. What can we do on our end? Like we have like we go to gigs or we go to like gallery shows, but on top of that, how can we appreciate art more?
I think you can only appreciate what you're interested in. So if you are not interested in it, you can feign appreciation. But whether you're truly appreciating it is a different
Yeah,
story.
great. Yeah, man, I
Some
support
some
local
people can fake it till they make it, but there's so many different types of art forms. You don't really have to fake it. You can just say, I like this, I do not like this. And then it just attributes to your own self-concept of things that you like and things that you don't like. So if you don't like the Picasso or the Michelangelos, you don't have to force yourself to like it. You can like modern art, something that's contemporary, or the bicycle wheel by itself. You know, some people just like that, right? The quirky weird art. And some people go, what's this bicycle wheel doing in the art museum, right? So different people have different tastes. Some people like it, some people don't. And it's really, art allows you to form that opinion. And I think it's really important to have an opinion rather than just a mere appreciation.
It's great. Nice. One last long question to a fun one to I heard that you did some cat fostering. How did you end up like I heard like at one point you had like 15 cats in one go. How did that come about?
So this is a pet project, pun intended. During COVID, I actually started off with a dog. Okay, so I had this dog for 16 years. She passed away during COVID, and then my mother said, "No more dogs." Okay, and then my husband grew up with cats, so I said, "Why don't we just look at some, kitten adoption sites?" And then that was the first misstep. Okay, and we ended up with two kittens. So one morning he opened the bathroom, and then there were two really cute kittens staring back at him.
Aw.
And I did the psychology trick, okay? So I named them after his famous Star Wars characters. So he couldn't deny them, right? It's like two cute faces with Star Wars names. How could you send them away? Right? Luke and Leia.
Luke and Leia, okay. The original trilogy, all right.
But then I said, let's try and, save more kitten lives, right? Why don't we give them up if we like the adopter that we meet? So we did find a very lovely couple to adopt them. And then the next morning, he found another two set of kittens looking at him again. And then the process just kept going on. So I did have a discussion with him. I was like, do you want me to tell you that there are incoming kittens, or do you want it to just happen, right? He just prefers life to just happen, and he will just deal with it, because if you know that something is coming, sometimes you just overthink it. So you don't get anything done if you plan for things that are unforeseen, right? Also, when it comes to this type of rescue work for animals, right, you don't know when the kittens are actually going to show up. Right, is you just respond to a need that needs to be met. That means there are three kittens that have been abandoned. Can you take them out? And it's just a yes or no. If you already have kittens with you, it's a matter of how many kittens are you willing to look after.
Hard to say no to kittens. Are you guys still doing that, or like since you have your daughter, like do you still do the fostering?
So I was actually fostering until I was actually heavily pregnant, and then I got a bit of scolding because they were actually saying, when you rescue animals from the street, they actually have diseases, right? That they can actually pass on to the pregnant woman as well as the child. So that after I got the scolding, I was like, okay, that's where we needed to kind of stop. And it's just my own ignorance of not knowing and just wanting to help. And, it's okay. I'll just wash them and then give them medication. They'll all be
You're
better.
coming from a good place, you know?
Yeah. And then not realizing that rescue work is actually quite, it's a lot more complex. There's a lot of different diseases that you don't know about, that it's not more than just preparing. It's just that I did not encounter those diseases yet on that kind of level that could affect me physically. And it was something to think about. We ended up with number 24 not being able to be adopted out because we liked him so much. So he became.
I was going to ask, like, how many did you keep?
We actually had the discipline to only keep one.
That's
yeah.
No.
But if it was up to my husband, we would have all 28 still living in the house.
Should have added 2, make it like a good round 30. Okay, Amanda, so we're going to do the rapid round now. Just give us like quick answers. Okay, first one, acrylics or watercolors?
Both.
Okay, the one advertising buzzword you never want to hear again.
I've been away from the advertising industry for quite some time. I would give you the art therapy one, coloring books.
Okay.
Yeah.
For advertising?
Advertising.
You know, they have like those buzzwords.
Deadlines.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Magical dust are the absolute enemy of a clean studio.
I think I can still live with the glitter and the dust.
So you see it as a magical dust?
Humid, and you can just vacuum it up. Okay, the bigger enemy is paint. Yeah,
Paint.
especially when it's dry, it's harder to clean up. Yeah.
Okay. If you could paint a mural on any building in Singapore, which one would you pick?
Parliament House.
What kind of mural would it be? We can cut this out.
A friendly one, okay? We wouldn't put anything. CDC vouchers.
Just the text.
Or GST with a big cross on it.
Do you have a song that instantly snaps you out of a bad mood?
Not really. I think I stopped listening to a lot of different songs because I read somewhere that psychologically it's not good to listen to too much music with words. Because sometimes subconsciously those words kind of drill in and they might not have a very positive impact on meaning. Yeah. And it's actually better to listen to music without words.
Little segue. I've read and also personally felt about, melancholy songs that somehow make us feel a whole lot better. It's part of a lyric in a song as well, but I have spoken to friends as well that they feel like, yes, some sad songs, if you're in a sad mood, you listen to it, it kind of make you feel better. Like, what's your take on that?
But if you listen to the sad song on repeat, it's gonna keep making you feel sad, right? So I mean, yes, it's good to listen to that type of music once in a while, especially if you resonate with it, it connects with you. But if you're playing it on repeat as you're doing work or doing something, it could have a negative side effect. And it's just better to do ambient music or classical music or chamber music. They also say that that type of music helps with brain function. And I think you've heard of before the child is born, listen to classical
music. Yeah.
Also, when the child is developing, listening to a specific type of music will be more beneficial than others. So I think that's also where you might want to think about what kind of music you want to expose yourself to. And that if, let's say, the words are subconsciously going into your brain when you're listening to certain type of music, especially music on repeat, what do you want to expose yourself to, right? So sometimes musicians or some artists actually have different meanings behind or emotions behind those words, those lyrics, right? And you really don't know what you're actually absorbing at the end of the day.
So it wasn't a good idea to let my kid listen to Soundgarden when he was...
It depends. I mean, growing up, they're listening to songs that are educational, that they learn about the world or they're learning about different things where they can sing with their classmates and socialize. So it's going to be different, right? But if you're letting your children listen to Beethoven or Mozart, none of the parents are going to complain about that, right? But if you are letting the child watch Demon Hunters, then I think some parents are going to say a lot of things about that because of the content and the words that come with it. That's really good.
Okay, that was more than one word, but okay. Next, let's do the next question. Morning creative or night owl?
Morning creative. So I'm a morning person. And funny thing is, my husband is the night one. So that's where we clash, right? The morning and the night person.
If you have a time machine, what is it that you would tell yourself when you were starting out the agency way back?
I don't know whether after having experienced the agency, whether I would have done life differently. Whether working with a big company or organization might have been an interesting life experience. Yeah, I think that's something that I've always thought about. If I were to go back and change things, maybe I'll pick a large organization like an MNC to work in as a different life to kind of experience. Yeah.
Okay, final one. Can you describe your life today in just one word.
One of the things, yeah, as a new parent, we lack a lot is sleep. Yeah, so sleepy would be a word. And I think also to sum it up is about self-care and getting enough rest. So, and also taking care of so many things and so many people. I think rest is really important, especially to me at this point of time.
I hope Amanda's story gave you permission to listen to that quiet voice inside you. If this conversation resonated, I want to know, what is one creative hobby you loved as a child that you've stopped doing? Drop it in the comments below. If you want to support Amanda's work, check the link in the description to shop for good. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more stories on resilience. See you next time. See the deep and emotional, feeling just about your life. And maybe you can give me some advice from my life. We all need some help sometimes. Agree. And then we can.
I didn't get to do my pass.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna give you a chance now. That we got 10, so please don't pass more than 2.